Hello and welcome to And the Runner-Up Is. This week on the show, we'll travel back in time to the 48th Academy Awards, which awarded the films of 1975. Sidney Lumet and Frank Pearson collaborated on bringing to life the story of bank robber John Vojtovich and created Dog Day Afternoon. The entertaining crime drama was a big hit at the box office and landed 6 Academy Award nominations, including one for Best Picture. But it was the bigger, similarly acclaimed film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest that conquered its strong Best Picture competition in the end. So, why did Dog Day Afternoon come up short? We'll explore all this and more as we discuss how the Oscar almost went to Dog Day Afternoon. Hello, and welcome to And the Runner-Up Is. I am your host, Kevin Jacobson, and today I am talking about a very fantastic year at the Oscars, if I do say so myself. It is 1975, and I will be talking about Dog Day Afternoon today, and I thought I would bring in, a film critic that is worthy of talking about such a fantastic film and a fantastic year. You have seen her work in places like Us Weekly, the New York Post, the New York Times, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, pretty much any real publication, you name it. And she just released her third novel, Bittersweet Brooklyn. So,
Thank you.
Busiest woman in the industry.
Also,
Thelma Adams.
Yeah, Brooklyn, Dog Day Afternoon. How about that?
Exactly. Isn't that fitting? I love it.
And I stepped right on your introduction. Thelma Adams, there I am.
Thelma Adams, there you are. Hello, world.
The definition of Thelma Adams stepped right on your line. Okay.
Quite all right. So yes, today we are indeed talking about Dog Day Afternoon, which I and others believe to be the runner-up to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, although there's been some cases made for other films, of course, being as excellent as they are. But we are indeed talking about Dog Day Afternoon. It is a crime drama inspired by the true story of John Vojtovich, I believe is the pronunciation.
I am very impressed by that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Who held up a bank in New York in 1972 in order to pay for his lover's sex reassignment surgery. And in the film, John is known as Sonny, and he and his associate Sal hold up the First Brooklyn Savings Bank, and the incident becomes a big media circus, with Sonny spending much of the time, much of the hostage situation, basically negotiating with the police sergeant, Eugene Moretti. So the film was directed by the great Sidney Lumet. We just talked about him literally last week with Network. Here we are again. And written by Frank Pearson. It stars Al Pacino as Sonny, John Cazale as Sal, Charles Durning, Penelope Allen, James Broderick, Carol Kane, a whole host of others, and Chris Sarandon as Leon. Dog Day Afternoon made $46 million at the box office, was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, and won one of them, but that one was not Best Picture. So, Thelma, let's talk about Dog Day Afternoon.
Where do you begin? I mean, Dog Day Afternoon, 1975. Dog Day Afternoon was so ahead of its time and of its time. It really does last. I mean, first of all, Sidney Lumet. Recently I saw a documentary about him about a year or two ago at Tribeca Film Festival, and he made some 50 films. And what I always say about artists and directors is, you can, if you get to make 50 films or write 50 books, you're allowed to have 9 masterpieces and 9 that really suck. And then this whole middle distance. But if you look at Lumet, this is one of his seminal films, masterpieces. Why? First of all, it's a New York film. You really get that sense. And I think in many ways we've gotten, when you go back and look at a 75 film, they seem familiar because we don't realize that at that moment, this man on the street, hostage crisis, helicopters up above, the way that Lumet keeps it always tied to the humanity of that central character, of the Al Pacino character, and how this is, again, one of Al Pacino's great roles. I think it's still a time when John Cazale was like appreciated, but not in the way he has been in retrospect. I mean, obviously, he was in The Godfather, Fredo, we know that, but also this idea of trying to get your lover sexual reassignment surgery is amazing. And then, since we do have this documentary, The Dog, about the real life person, as crazy as this movie seems to be, it really takes away the bizarre edges of this man who was married and had, went back and forth in his relationships. He wasn't someone that was just one person, just a man. But what's clear about this is that he's a man in love doing a desperate act.
Yeah. And it really does come down to that exact thing. And I think it represents, in a way, the new Hollywood of the 1970s, really, like you said, kind of on the ground, just about real human emotions. It's not too formal, even though, the Sidney Lumet comes from television. So there is kind of the traditional formal elements that he brings to the table, I think. But at the same time, it just feels so viscerally alive and breathing and like New York, in a way that's just electrifying. Even over 40 years later, you still just get wrapped up in it, I think.
Electrifying is definitely an adjective I would use for this movie.
Yeah.
And it ages well. Unlike some movies of that year, like Mandingo. We've got to remember 1975, 1975, though, I think also we want to say is the watershed year. Mm-hmm. We look back at the 70s and we think of the great movies, Altman, Arthur Penn, Hal Ashby, early Woody Allen, Scorsese. All of these people are, there's this great group of people trying to push American movies in a way towards the French New Wave, towards things that are emotional, that are real. And then, boom, dun, 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 dun. 75 is also dun, 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 dun. The year of Jaws, when the tables are turned, the blockbuster, many people think that's the movie that made the blockbuster, that gave birth to the blockbuster and swallowed all of those movies, the smaller movies and the ethos of the smaller movie, maybe even the dogma of America. And I left out a couple of movies that are just crazy good that year. Shampoo, Hal Ashby, that movie also holds up. Hester Street, 3 Days of the Condor, Love and Death, before Woody Allen was just an embarrassment. These things, that's just, and it was the year I was a junior in high school, the year before the American Bicentennial. It was just a really juicy year.
Very, very much so. And I love that we're talking about this movie in particular, because I think obviously One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is the big winner here, wins the big 5 awards, but I feel like this movie in particular represents a lot of the 70s. And that's part of also why I chose it as a runner-up, because I feel like if One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was not in the running, I feel like this is of a piece of a lot of the films that were winning in the 1970s, which we'll get to later. But let's talk the film itself. Yes. Mm-hmm. So I think I just wanted to start by talking about the opening itself, because I think that's exactly where it just draws you in right away, which is with that great Elton John song, Amarina, that just complements the imagery so well. Just the, establishing the atmosphere of 1970s New York, from all the little idiosyncrasies and showing the economic disparities, showing the griminess, showing how hot it is, like
it's
people are kind of in people's business,
Right. It's that taxi driver thing too, of like, when you look at that now and you look back, it's the heat, it's the people on the ground, Al Pacino is playing an Italian man. You really get that ethnic feel and that working class feel and just the bounce of the streets. And Lumet is excellent at doing shorthand.
Yeah. And another thing I just wanted to talk about with this movie is just how funny it is. Like,
how absurd and funny it is. Yes.
Yeah. Like watching it now, I was like, I'm laughing more at this than like a lot of movies being sold as comedies like right now, you know.
I don't know. I think that maybe in 75, again, because it's the 70s and there was a lot of experiment. It was much more because they really were, I think, trying to get at what it felt like in the 70s. And the 70s, I mean, one wants to say, flowing out of the summer of love. In the 60s, there was this feeling of hope that we would achieve civil rights, that we would achieve equity, that the cool people would take over the earth, that there was this feeling of hope, but also that maybe we would need a revolution in order to achieve it.
Yeah.
And then corporate America takes it all over.
And then the 80s covenants, all that. Yeah.
That's the yuppie crap. Yeah.
Right.
That's what we called it. In the 80s, it was like the yuppie takeover. And
right.
we never, and, to quote a Jody, we never got back to the garden.
Right, exactly.
Paved paradise, put up a parking lot. That's
there you
the
go.
80s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I talked last week about Network and how Sidney Lumet really does a great job of, again, drawing you in, but also taking the time to get you into the story. And I think that's exactly how the bank robbery gone wrong, hostage situation plays out. It's such a natural, flowing way. I can't get over how well this film is edited, and that's from Dede Allen.
Right. I mean, and and it's, you think even this year, I mean, when you think of movies like The Destroyer, Karin Kusama's movie that has a really great bank robbery scene, or you think of Point Break, the Catherine Bigelow movie, this is a movie. The thing I love about Lumet when he's not doing the whiz, okay, when he's not lost, when he's really in control, is that he grew up in the theater. His father was a Yiddish theater actor. This was his place. This was his milieu. And also we have to remember he's an amazing social critic, and Dog Day Afternoon is a very socially engaged film. And again, I know it's getting tired, but Jaws didn't care about social engagement. But Lumet, it was the heart of his Jewish humanism that he really, and Network has that same thing, but this one is really about the streets of New York and about inequality and unfairness, and how crime and punishment, right and wrong, they all are rebalanced by the power and the passion of love, even when the actions are wrong. So you do in this movie feel like the hostages are at risk. You never lose that. This is the difficult thing to do, is to never lose the feeling that the hostages are at risk and in danger, and yet to feel like the Al Pacino character is human and empathetic. And Lumet does that there's that long sequence, and I don't want to get ahead of your order, where he's talking to his mother, where he's, and,
yes.
And yes, it's a manipulative thing that the cop does, but you still see that kind of, that you really, every bit of dialogue reveals who this character is.
Yes.
A good guy caught in something he can't exactly explain, but not really questioning himself.
Yeah.
Really accepting that he is in love with this human. And what that human wants is sexual reassignment surgery, which in 75 was, people were not as familiar with that.
No, especially in film,
Well, I think overall, it was not the way that we are now with, he, she, it, them, they're theirs, this kind of acceptance that people are not binary, that was not really, that was so much not on the table in 75.
Yeah. And it's a credit that they were able to tackle it, not only just tackle it at all, but to tackle it with a surprising amount of grace, really,
Yeah.
and have it not be blatantly offensive, really. And we still do have those scenes where like a cop might be laughing at, oh, he's said his wife, but it's a man and he wants to be a woman and all this stuff. But that's all very realistic. So it's not like,
Yeah.
that's just part of the culture, really, at the time. Even in a very, melting pot of New York area, it's still one of these things. And one of the things I found really interesting, especially on this watch, that I noticed is just how the local people around him really succumb to like revere Sonny and the whole situation, and kind of as a local hero of sorts, fighting the man in a way.
Well, that phrase that you just said, fighting the man. I mean, we'll come back to it again and again. That's the fulcrum of 1975.
Yeah.
The rebellious hero. He's fighting the man. He's on the street. It's New York, not LA. All of these things make it a quintessential 70s movie. And that when you look at these movies, that there really are virtually none, very few that are directed by women or people of color, also defines that year. Because what was revolutionary, even of the guys from the 70s, Scorsese, Hal Ashby, Alan Rudolph, Altman, Scorsese, you can go down the list, it's still more or less an arc of white men. So it's just a different version than the Hollywood Insider.
Yeah, straight white men, really. Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But what I found interesting about, like, I feel like there's a turn, once it comes out that the wife that he is asking for is not what people were expecting, the people around them like really kind of turn on him and start to boo and jeer him, where we do get like the LGBT community coming out and supporting him, but the general vibe is a lot different, which I find just so interesting. Just the little hypocrisies and differences in opinions, especially like with Sal, how Sal is robbing a bank, and one of the biggest issues he has is like, I don't want to be depicted as a homosexual in the news, or talking about like smoking and how he doesn't want to smoke because his body is a temple.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, and I think it's really important to accept it in its time context, and to accept it how it was radical for its time, and also to sit back and go, look at how far we've come, and yet in Trump's America, every day we're out there fighting, screaming, Attica, Attica. The struggle doesn't end, and there was a sense in the 70s that we would fight for these things and we would win, and we wouldn't have to claim the same hill again.
Yeah. Yep. I just want to talk about these performances too, because we alluded to it before, but Al Pacino, I think in this particular role, I mean, he dominates a lot of the 70s and some of the 80s too, but this role in particular, I think, is really special, in my opinion. I think he is like a marvel in this role. I think he conveys so much emotion, from desperation to kind of a kind of person who doesn't know what he's doing in many respects, and things have gotten out of hand. Plus just the natural charisma and the confidence that he has as a person that would make so many people drawn to him, and that would make him a local hero, and that would make, that would make Leon still have this attraction to him, even though he's kind of an asshole. It's just so much that Al Pacino is carrying, I think, so well.
Right. And Al Pacino, when he finally got the Oscar for Scent of a Woman, he didn't get it for all of these things where he was again and again and again and again. He really is this method actor. You see him, although we talk about Al Pacino, when you watch it, as he disappears. He is this person And although he has those great roles, the great segments that we remember when he goes out and he's screaming on in front of the bank and riling everybody up and commanding and desperate, he also has those moments of vulnerability. And he's not an intellectual. He's not
Right.
someone that understands or thinks about it. It's all visceral. Like everything is emotional for this man. And I feel like Pacino just digs in, finds the guy's nobility, but also that he's kind of a schmuck, right? I mean, look at, he just did not think this thing out.
Right. Right.
And it is, I think, time and time again in the 70s, Pacino was king. I mean, that period, dot, end of story, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he gets accused of being hammy a lot in his career, and this is definitely an over the top kind of character, but I don't think it reaches that point where it's too much.
You know, it's funny because we can discuss hamminess, but I think that in this case, there's like this white hot core to him. And also Lumet, who came from the theater in his best work, you know, having done 12 Angry Men and he is an actor's director.
Oh, yeah.
So he won't let Pacino go away from the central core, the burning hot core of this character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's some other performances in this film. I know it's easy to just look at Al Pacino and say it's the Al Pacino movie, but I think this cast is so good, even down to the smallest part. There's so many great lines, and they're delivered so well. We can definitely talk about John Cazale and his very subdued, subtle, very pent up character.
Right.
And I think it takes a lot to convey that confidently, and it's hard.
It's interesting. I think it's interesting to note that people like Meryl Streep, who was his partner and he died young and suddenly, they thought of him as the actor's actor. You know, he was, and he is a very quiet. He has that not movie star face. It's not like Pacino, who has to who's so naturally handsome and physically attractive. Like Cazale is not working with that. He has a very funny face. He has that receding hairline, and yet it's, I don't want to say delicate, but it's like he's a super listening. He's listening so much that also allows his generosity as an actor allows Pacino to go so far out. It's like, because Cazale is always holding the other end of the line.
They balance each other really well. I think they really bounce off each other well. And you're right. I think he is a very receptive kind of actor.
That's a great word. Receptive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, very enigmatic, very interesting character that you always want to kind of know more about, I think.
Right. And he, I would say it's a feat of underplaying.
Yeah.
And yet he makes an impression on the screen.
Yeah.
And we have, Carol Kane. This was the year that Carol Kane, who it was always my favorite actress, who I adore. And that year she had Hester Street.
Right.
And really the only movie that I remember from that year that was directed by a woman, Joan Micklin Silver, Where Is She Now? And Carol Kane kind of burst. There were a lot. 75 was a year that a lot of actors burst in.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Curry, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Lawrence Fishburne, the list goes on and on and on, and Carol Kane was among them.
Yeah, and she has a very small role in comparison to
to the guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
But
for sure,
the kind of, I guess you could call them the chorus of bank tellers are so great.
You can call them that.
Yeah.
It really is like a Greek chorus of all, and every character, in that sweaty, locked up, they're afraid for their life, and yet you see the whole group slowly turn as they understand this guy's dilemma.
Yeah.
It's, it really is. It's a character driven heist movie.
Mm-hmm.
Heist movie? Bank robbery movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not a Western. So many bank robbery movies, even now,
true.
they're set
Hell or
in
High Water.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Are contemporary Westerns. And this is not. This is a very, I think, unique structure.
It is.
That Mhm.
Yeah. And I did want to talk a little bit about the chorus of women led by Penelope Allen, who I think really steals the show a lot
Right.
throughout the film. Doesn't get any recognition for it. Neither does John Cazale for that matter. But yeah, you know. But
Well, what can you do?
yeah, but she is great. She has so many great little lines, and how she wants to just defend her girls. She wants to protect them. She's the head teller, so she just wants to be their leader. And like she
Right.
has the chance to escape basically away, and she's
Mhm.
like, "No, I got to go back in and protect my girls."
Well, and also I think that era's gone. That kind of, that lionizing of people who work in a bank and bank tellers, and we're now, everything's so corporate, slick. Also, the freedom of not having the cell phone, the intrusion, the texting, the all of that thing, that it does feel freer in some way, lighter in some way, more direct.
Yeah. I just love that exchange that John Cazale and Penelope Allen have about how Penelope Allen is just like, I want a cigarette, basically. And even though she doesn't smoke.
Well, yeah, but sometimes you're under stress. You're like, I just anything, a life raft, a cigarette. Yeah.
Yeah, just the banter they have between them, and how like she's like pointing out his hypocrisies and being like, so you rob a bank, but you keep your body pure. Is that it? Like,
well, everybody,
I just love
isn't that at the center also of Network, which you discussed last time, like people's hypocrisy. And Sal, in order to get what he wants in his romantic life, puts all of these people at risk because they're just one random sniper bullet away from apocalypse.
Exactly. Well put.
Thank you.
I did want to talk about the kind of reveal that Sonny's wife turns out to be transgender, and whether we think that still plays well. Because I think the way the film presents it is as if it's like big plot twist sort of thing. And it's hard to say. Like, it reminds me slightly of how I talked a little bit about The Crying Game back in 1992, and how that twist is sort of played in a way that feels very not great, in my opinion. But I wanted to get your thoughts kind of on how that has held up.
Well, I do want to say that we have to be self-forgiving. I think we're living in a very judgmental time.
Yes.
And so, you're saying that the reveal in The Crying Game, which is, oh my God, I remember, don't tell anybody the ending, but this is almost 2 decades before that.
I know.
And so, let's allow people their surprise and their ability, that they don't use the right language. We can't keep on revising the past. We can't keep saying, judging everybody by our present situation. And so for me, and people will disagree, I'm not an expert in this. This is not, in how to use the language. I would just say this is about the humanity of love.
Yeah. I agree. I think it is actually handled well in this case. And I think the way that the characterization of Leon is presented is very good, very strong, and very, it's just very human. And there's nothing stereotypical about it. It's not offensive in any way. It's just these two people who happen to be in love and in a very complicated situation. And they give the screen time to devoting that relationship with enough with enough of an emotional connection where you, as a person in 1975 who might not be exposed to this kind of a relationship in your normal life, would come to understand it, I think.
right. I want. I don't think. And again, I don't think it's not a teaching moment.
Yeah, right.
It's a story, and if you see, and I recommend highly the documentary The Dog, which is about this same man. His sexual his life was very fluid. He had a wife. It was complicated. This was like one part of it. They didn't go through this moment and then live happily ever after for the rest of their lives. He went on, so we have to remember also that this is a movie that takes place, in 24 hours?
Yeah.
It's which is a certain kind of movie, which I love. So all this intensity happens in a day. All these people it's just a slice. It's just a tangent of all of this other stuff that's going on in their lives. It's just a moment. But what's interesting is as captured by Lumet in one of his 9 most brilliant, I'm just going to say 9, but one of that percentage of his most brilliant movies, it really captures a moment, but it doesn't say this is what life is. It's a day in the life of a man who breaks apart and comes back together again.
Yeah. And I just wanted to sort of wrap things up by going through a quick little stray observations that I had. First of all, I absolutely love the chemistry and like the banter between the police sergeant and Sonny throughout the film, and how it evolves, and how the police sergeant Moretti, played by Charles Durning, really just like understands this person and knows how to manipulate them, but treats them with such care. I just love that entire.
Well, again, you have to remember that they're both Italian. They're New York Italian. So as far as they are on the spectrum, as much different as they are, they share a culture.
Exactly. Yeah. Another thing I want to note is it's a very small thing, but the pizza boy who goes to deliver the pizza to Sonny, he's basically like, I'm a star, like, and it's just time capsule really of this is how it was at this particular time. Like, I'm involved in this like weird situation and now I'm a star.
Exactly. And it's very pre Us Weekly. It's very pre, like, everybody is a star.
Yes.
This idea of being on TV. Oh my God. It's a different relationship with mass culture.
Yeah.
With media culture.
Exactly. Yeah. I just wanted to end it, unless you had any other big grand points you wanted to make.
My grand point is this, that it's a kick-ass Sidney Lumet movie that really captures the moment. And boy, I would have loved it if this kind of movie had been Ascendant and not dun 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 dun, dun, dun.
Say it, everybody listening. Yeah.
It's really a watershed year, 1975.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I just wanted to end it by having a little quote here from the real man, John Vojtovich.
Very good, Vojtovich. Those are hard, not easy.
Yeah, who said that the film was only 30% true, adding, "I felt the film in essence is a piece of garbage."
Thank you. Such a 70s attitude. Bless you.
Yes.
And I think, everybody, there you have it. Even, virtually anybody. Oh, now, let's take this year and you take Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
May he rest in peace. If Freddie Mercury came back and looked at the movie, he'd go... 30%, 20%, 18% truth, the rest garbage. It's probably true. And yet, in order to make a story, a drama, a dramedy, a thriller, you got to take the license.
Exactly. And I'm glad that it turned out the way that it did. So
exactly.
There you go. So when we come back, we will be discussing why Dog Day Afternoon lost Best Picture to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
You know something, people? You're going to be remembered the rest of your lives for the day you got held up and kidnapped.
At approximately 3 p.m. on August 22nd, 1972, Sonny Wurtzig and Sal Naturale entered the First Brooklyn Savings Bank and attempted a robbery.
Freeze! Nobody...
The attempt failed.
There's no money here.
The police arrived. For the people of the neighborhood, it was a sideshow.
Sonny! Sonny!
But for Sonny and Sal, the hostages, and the cops, it was a dog day afternoon.
It's all a whim. Rob a bank.
I had a plan. I had it planned. But you keep away from this bank or we're going to start throwing bodies out the front door one at a time. All right, who has to go to the bathroom here?
I do.
The most you're gonna get is 5 years. You get out in 1 year, huh?
Kiss me. They're going to give us anything we want.
Get some food in here, some pizzas, all right?
What I owe you for this?
It's all paid for.
No, I got it.
Hello, Sonny. You're on the air.
We're entertainment, right? What do you got for us?
I ain't going back to that prison, Sonny.
I'm here with my partner and 9 other people. See, we're dying.
Don't, son!
Run.
Where am I going to run?
Algeria.
Algeria?
Yeah, they got a Howard Johnson's there, so I'm going.
Al Pacino. Dog Day Afternoon. A true story.
And we're back. So now we'll be discussing why Dog Day Afternoon lost Best Picture to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. First off, Dog Day Afternoon was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director for Sidney Lumet, Best Actor for Al Pacino, Best Supporting Actor for Chris Sarandon, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Film Editing, and it won Best Original Screenplay. And before the Oscars, Dog Day Afternoon won the WGA, and it actually tied with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest for Best Picture at the Los Angeles Film Critics. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest also won the Golden Globe for drama, the DGA, and the WGA for adapted. So let's talk about this great Best Picture lineup, and especially how One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest won over all of them.
Right. And one little Oscar note that remains true is that the Bridesmaid Award is the best screenplay.
Yeah.
The fact that it won best screenplay is always, and I would say that Black Klansman this year, for Spike Lee, he's, I think, not going to win best director, but he's going to get a screenplay award.
Right.
There's this funny kind of, we're going to give it for this. And again, in this case, Milos Forman won the best director and it won best picture. So they weren't split. They thought that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was the movie of the year.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like they were like, oh, we're going to give this to this and that to that, And
But this is the bigger technical achievement, so we're giving that director, that sort of thing. Right.
Right. And why do you think that is? Why do you think One Flew Over, the fact that it was Ken Kesey, Jack Nicholson in a dramatic role over Pacino? Where is it? Where are we? It's an interesting question that I still am not, Nicholson won Best Actor over many other people, and again, over Pacino, who didn't win for years after. And Lumet never won.
I know. Yeah. And that's heartbreaking. But
right. He got an honorary.
He did get an honorary. But,
right.
That is what it is. But.
So maybe as often is the case, if you look back even over the last 10 years of what wins, it's not the movie that stands the test of time. So your podcast really, by going back, reminds us of those movies that defined a year, and it's not necessarily the movie that won, even though, and now Nurse Ratched won, Louise Fletcher won Best Actress for her role as the evil nurse. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest it's from a beloved book. I think that you also have to factor in, as we were discussing earlier, that in 1975, people were not necessarily as comfortable with the idea of a transgender character, and that whole thing might have put them off. Where I would say One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a classic Hollywood, not Hollywood, mainstream, but it's a classic, like, we know who the good guys are and we know who the bad guys are.
Right. Very straightforward.
You know,
yeah.
It's very straightforward. The Jack Nicholson character is put into a mental institution, not because he's crazy, but because he's a rebel, which is so much a mid-70s white male thing. He's a rebel.
Right.
He gets put in. All he wants to do is have joy and real life and not conform. And then the evil person, it's very clear the evil person is Nurse Ratched, who represents, you know, I'm not going to go so far as to say the female repressive, blah, 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 but she is the authority. And it was such an anti-authoritarian time.
Yeah.
But it's much less shades of gray than Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that good and evil sense is very clear throughout the film. I think it is a very easily digestible film for a wide swath of Oscar voters, I think, in comparison to Dog Day Afternoon, which has some some raggedness to it. You know, it's a little grimier, it's a little dirtier, I guess you could say.
It's way more New York-y.
Yeah, well, that too, you know, primarily Los Angeles based.
Right.
Voting pool.
Even more at that time. And there was, I think, more antagonism between the two coasts.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think all of that definitely was a factor, in addition to the fact that it did very well at the box office. Not as well as dun 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 dun, but you know,
right.
It was the second number 2 movie of the year, made over $100 million.
You know, right. And it's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's from a classic. It's from that Ken Kesey class. I just think that it hit all the right notes without turning anybody off.
Right.
It's a hugely bravura, charming performance. In some ways, it's more than a bromance. It's like he and this whole group, this ragtag group of crazies, go out, you know, and even then, it's like a not realistic view of what it's like to be institutionalized and who these people are. It is a little bit like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, you know, it's him and, you know, Ball of Fire. It's him and these guys that are so charming, and there's no problem when they escape the institution in some ways, you know?
Yeah. And Nurse Ratched is the evil queen.
Is the evil queen.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
So what we're saying is it's an adaptation, really, of Snow White.
Really an adaptation of Snow White.
Yes.
I would say that.
That is what it won adapted screenplay for.
Right, exactly. And Jack Nicholson, oddly enough, Snow White.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all part of it. And I'm looking at the other movies in the race because there was a little bit of back and forth about what I would choose for 75, especially with Jaws in the mix and Barry Lyndon, which wins 4 Oscars. And,
which is brilliant, yeah.
Right, yeah. And Nashville, which is held up as a huge classic from Altman and was very critically acclaimed at the time. So.
And I am a huge Altman fan. And Altman is such an original voice in most cases in the movies that he makes, that I would say of these 5, I would say Nashville is the classic.
Yeah,
I think
I would too.
Yeah, the characters, the way he does that mosaic story, and that, you know, that it holds together and gives you an idea of kind of the funk master side of 1975. In all its excess, and it has those great, you know, Lily Tomlin, great performance. I'm trying to look and see
Ronnie Blakely.
Ronnie Blakely. You know, there's actually there's not an acting. Yeah, Ronnie Blakely got nominated for Nashville.
Yeah.
So, and Lily Tomlin as a supporting.
Right.
It's just a great moment in cinema. I've got to say, you know. You could quibble about all the other things that are there. I mean, how a year where Hal Ashby's Shampoo doesn't even make it, you know, on the list. Again, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. A fabulous movie.
That was the year before.
Yeah. Oh, it was the year before? Yeah. So is Three Days of the Condor the year before?
Yes. No. 3 Days of the Condor was this year. Yes.
Was this year.
Yes.
You know, gosh, 3 Days of the Condor, Redford, right? And just like this really, I think this was also still a period where the thriller, which we've now come to see as as an A movie, was still considered a B genre film.
Yeah.
So those movies didn't really, Night Moves, the Arthur Penn, also not necessarily as high up on the list as these, but still a great movie. If that is 75, sometimes it's hard to figure out,
right.
Is it 75? Is it, because it's, but I mean, Shampoo, Carrie Fisher, again, when we're talking about debuts that year, that was her debut film. And that holds up. That, and Shampoo is more of a Los Angeles movie. It's about, it's about masculinity and sex.
Yeah. And I do definitely want to get into like pretty much every movie you just mentioned later, because first I just want to get through Dog Day Afternoon and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because we did get a few really good questions, I think, from Twitter.
Oh, let's answer them.
Oh, yes. So Charlie Bright, my last guest for Network, came in with a question who said,
Chuck.
Yeah, old Chuck. Do you agree with my assessment that Dog Day Afternoon is Al Pacino's best role? If not, what do you think is his best performance?
Tough guy. Dude, that's a tough question. I have to go back to Godfather. I mean, his Michael Corleone, okay, I'm not someone who can do apples and oranges so well.
Yeah.
If I think about it, his Michael Corleone in The Godfather, every time they, just paraphrase, every time they pull me out, every time I try to get out, they pull me back
in. Yeah.
That whole idea of immigrants trying to assimilate, trying to move up generation to generation, becoming a lawyer, all these things. That to me is such a paramount role. I don't want to say it's better. I just am like, if I think Pacino, I do think Godfather.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do. I mean, it is really his defining role in many ways, but for me, I have to say that Dog Day Afternoon exceeds that slightly in terms of his performance, just on a visceral, raw level. I think that stands out to me a little bit more. Maybe I'm just being like the kind of person that's like, oh, it's not going to be the obvious thing. It has to be this thing. But
no, I don't think you are. But I
still,
think what we were talking about earlier about how out there he is in Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah.
Then you have to, if you compare it to Corleone, who is so dialed down for most of it, so that his violence comes out of this, it takes so long, the slow burn goes on, and you go, gosh, that's the same actor. I would say I love Pacino. Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily want to hang out with him because I have a feeling from what I've heard that he's, has a difficult off camera, but these roles, this actor, he was one of the defining actors of the 70s.
Yeah, this place in time really for him is just
sweet,
unparalleled. Yeah. Quick question from
Ed. Chuck.
From Ed Stevens. This is a hypothetical question. Watch out.
Those are dangerous.
Yes. As we know, both One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Network won Oscars in the lead acting categories. What do you think would have happened if they had been nominated in the same year?
Oh, Network up against
Cuckoo's Nest.
Hypothetical Network up against Cuckoo's Nest. Does Nicholson trump? Yeah, I think so. That's a tough one. I mean, it might have been more split. It might have been like Nicholson for the win, but Milos, Network wins Best Picture, but Milos Forman wins Director, or they flip it. You know what? Hypothetical. Who the hell knows? Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Shrug.
Shrug. I tried. Thank you, Ed, for the question.
Yeah,
Now you answer it on Twitter.
right. I would actually say Jack Nicholson probably wins, and then I would maybe say Faye Dunaway wins for actress over Louise Fletcher.
Yeah,
I'm not.
where is Fletcher now?
Well, that's a
Well,
whole other thing.
That's
Yeah,
a whole other thing.
yeah.
Yeah, let's do that one.
From Sam Coffey, this is 3 supporting actors were nominated for Dog Day Afternoon between the Globes and Oscars. Who deserved it?
Casal.
Yeah. So him and Charles Durning, I believe, were nominated at the Globes, and then Chris Sarandon actually ended up getting nominated at the Oscars. Just to recap.
Just Susie's brother. Yeah. No, Casal. God,
I think I agree there. Yeah.
That didn't take me any time. The other question, I was like, that one is like
hemming and hawing. Yeah.
Exactly. Family Feud. I know that one.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. So a few, just actually one about Cuckoo's Nest from Josh Parham, who said, did Brad Dourif deserve to be the only supporting actor singled out from Cuckoo's Nest's cast?
What do you think? No? I think the simple answer is no, but who would you have put there?
The only one I would even consider would be maybe Will Sampson as the chief, because I think that's a very memorable character, and he has a lot of quiet dignity and strength to him that I find interesting. So I don't know if I would have nominated him per se, but that would be the one who would come close with. Yeah. I was surprised I didn't get this question, though, but there has been a lot of debate over the years over whether Louise Fletcher in the movie is, in fact, a lead or a supporting character.
Okay, so the answer to that, which is always difficult, is she's the female lead.
Sure.
There isn't another female in the movie, which is one of the issues that we look, even though it's a prime year, these movies that we're discussing, the women aren't, the female roles are not that big. Nashville, they are. Hester Street, obviously. Shampoo, obviously. A lot of fantastic female roles, lead roles, major roles. These 2 movies, not so much.
Yeah, pretty much. So
there's a lot of testosterone in these movies.
There sure is. Yeah.
God bless them. Okay.
Let's talk about these 3 other movies nominated for Best Picture. I would love to talk a little more about Nashville. I know we talked about it a little bit already.
You can never talk about Nashville too many times.
Exactly.
I mean, it's interesting to look at Lily Tomlin's career and how she has persisted. And there's just a rhythm to this. Also, it's not New York, LA. It's Nashville. It's the music scene. And I think the fluidity of Altman, the joy in filmmaking, the greatness of the script and the improvisation. I just think he's he's a real American original. And the majority of his movies are Altman movies. Again, compared to Lumet or Foreman, who did a bunch of different movies. And Lumet, he would do a thriller. He would do a courtroom drama. He would do a musical, The Wiz. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But kind of as subdued as Altman got was Gosford Park, which is a little bit, but still an ensemble piece and still brilliant. But he had a personal style that has it. That if you want to do auteur theory, Altman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love Nashville. It's my favorite of this Best Picture lineup. I think it's an absolute masterpiece of Americana. It's one of the most defining films about America, I think, especially at that specific point in time. It has a lot to say, and just the cast itself is a murderer's row of incredible talent. And the songs themselves are very good. And I love I'm Easy. I love the scene of I'm Easy with Keith Carradine singing and all the girls are in the audience. Yes.
I mean, come on. Shallow versus Keith Carradine.
I think they can coexist. Okay.
I will allow that. I won't agree.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay, fair enough.
But I love that scene where he is singing "I'm Easy" to that crowd, and all these girls think that he's singing about her,
Them.
But it
Yeah.
turns out it's about the Lily Tomlin character and her scene, just the way she's in the back, the way that it's framed, and her look of recognition on her face, that she realizes this is about her, that she's his muse. It's just so beautifully filmed.
Yeah, and also emotionally rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and improvised so much of it. And I think Altman really allowed he allowed his actors to stretch, and to surprise him and to surprise the audience. Altman, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I didn't even, I am unworthy.
Right. And I love the ending too, which is just
Everything.
so striking and memorable. Yeah.
Everything about it is appealing. And also it's very hard in a movie like that to nail the landing in the way that he did.
Oh yeah.
So,
Everything comes together so well, and
Right.
it's so bittersweet, So yeah, it's great. This is from Al Robinson, who said, if the SAG Awards were around back then, would
were they? No, they weren't.
Very much not.
Okay.
No, they wouldn't be invented till 20 years in the future.
Oh my
But,
goodness. You
if
can
they-
see that this is not that I don't that I am not a that's not my forte. I guess
Right.
that's not my strength is knowing. Okay, I'm just anyway, let's continue.
Okay.
You can
Anyway.
wrap that up. Yeah.
This is from Al Robinson, who said, if the SAG Awards were around back then, would Nashville's huge cast stand a
Yes.
decent chance of beating the cast of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Yeah, I think it absolutely wins. No question.
And it's interesting because that is that thing of now the Academy is it's so actor driven in many ways. It's still the actors branch is the biggest branch. So movies like this, like Altman's, where that has this fantastic ensemble where everybody's good, there's a lot of voting towards the best picture carried by the actors.
Right, exactly. He also wanted to know, what is your favorite song from Nashville? It's I'm Easy, gotta say.
I'm Easy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Great.
for sure.
That was easy.
That was easy. And how very dare you, 2 questions.
I know, right? There's a 1 question limit. Okay. Greg Adams wanted to know which Nashville supporting actress had a better shot at a win. So as we said, Ronnie Blakely and Lily Tomlin were both nominated for supporting actress. They lost to Lee Grant in Shampoo.
Deserving. Grant,
Sure.
deserving. She was fabulous. The problem is always that split. I mean,
Yeah.
we're in that situation this year with The Favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And as the BAFTAs just showed, Rachel Weisz seems to be the one, and she's the one that I would give the award to.
Me too.
But having 2 actresses from the same film dilutes both chances.
Right. Splits the vote.
Chances
Yep.
of both. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, classic vote splitting scenario, I think,
Yeah.
happens here, because I think they're both great for very different reasons. And
Right.
I think if you watch Nashville, you can certainly appreciate what Ronnie Blakely is doing. She really drives a lot of the story. She has a lot of the emotional heart. And Lily Tomlin has a different kind of style to her, but is also having an emotional heart to her. It's not like
Right.
very clear which one to pick, one over the other.
No. Mm-mm. Sophie's choice, and we don't have to do it because it was 1975.
Right. I do wonder, though, which one did have a better chance. I guess I would say Lily Tomlin, just because she was established, but I'm not sure if there was like a TV bias or anything.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Blakely, that would have been, again, it was a hard pick.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk Jaws.
Oh my God. Jaws is a great movie. That's the hard thing. I think that I love the Spielberg who's entertaining.
Me too. Yeah.
So this is my feeling about Spielberg, and I think I don't know if it's controversial or whatever.
Watch out.
Watch out. Oh no. I think he's a very manipulative filmmaker.
Sure.
So in Jaws, in Close Encounters, in Oh, my favorite one,
E.T.?
Indiana Jones, not E.T.
Okay. All right.
All of those. I mean, you want to be manipulative. You want to be manipulated. Indiana Jones, you want, everything coming at your character and Nazis, and you want to believe, in the romance at the center, and one thing happens as and the other, and it's super enjoyable to me when he does not have a serious point that he's trying to carry on his back. I adore him.
Yeah, I definitely am picking up on what you're saying there.
Right.
Yeah.
When it comes to Schindler's List or Amistad or Lincoln,
Yeah.
I just feel like, please, Mr. Spielberg, go, you ruined the small 70s movie with your big blockbuster. Just stay the course, man. Stay the course.
Yeah, and I've gotten into some Twitter fights about that this era of the American civics lessons that he's doing lately. How I'm not really a huge fan of those, but
for the past X decades, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know what, Mr. Spielberg, I'm talking to you right now. Your mother loves you. She takes you seriously. Don't worry about that. Go back and just rip it up. Have fun.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing things like Ready Player One at the same time, so
right.
Whatever.
Right.
Exactly. I'm
Exactly.
not even a fan of that, but regardless.
That's why I said yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jaws is a classic. You can't deny it, regardless of how you really feel about it. It's so influential,
And Richard Dreyfuss, I mean, we're talking this year again about these classic, 3 Days of the Condor is Redford, Gene Hackman, Pacino, Nicholson, Dreyfuss. It's like the 70s guys.
Yeah, those same guys, over and over.
Redford aside, who was the classic, WASP hero, this was the introduction with Woody Allen as well of the ethnic star, and that was a big step in a different direction.
Yeah. Yep. I love the three actors at the center of Jaws. I love Roy Scheider, especially.
Right.
And Robert Shaw in particular.
They're awesome.
Yeah, his one monologue scene that he has in that is really powerful.
And they're just, I mean, and it's kind of a 70s reimagining of Moby Dick, right?
Yeah.
The White Whale. And
absolutely.
And it just is so much thrill. It's so scary. It's very edge of the seat, and Lord love it. It made a lot of money.
Oh, yes.
And we still watch it, and it gave birth to such things as Sharknado. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
And the Meg, all sorts of things. Yeah.
It goes on and on.
Oh, yeah. Yep. The shark genre, yes.
Yes.
We did
piranha. In some way, you can say piranha too.
Sure.
The little fish, the big fish, as long as they have teeth.
Yes.
Okay, onward.
This is from Gordon at Mark Wahlberg, who said,
"Okay, Gordy.
Despite below-the-line success, as well as a Best Picture nom, Jaws failed to pick up anything above the line. Which of its three main actors do you think deserve nominations? And who gets cut? Also, who do you think was next in line for Best Actor? That's the other question, whatever. Yes.
I would answer this in part that Jaws was still suffering from the Black Panther bias, that it was seen as in fact, in the Oscars, the fact that it made so much money and was so just balls out entertaining, made it less likely to win. Didn't get Best Picture. Spielberg didn't, Best Director. You got to put Dreyfuss in there. Dreyfuss has to be, and Scheider, fantastic. So it is again a hypothetical. And we're talking about a hypothetical in 75, a little tricky. But so I'm going to stand on dry ground, a metaphor.
Very good.
Kind of. Okay. I would go with Dreyfuss because also Dreyfuss at this point was Spielberg's leading man.
Yeah.
So I would go with Dreyfuss, although I love Scheider. So
yeah,
and Shaw, excellent. There's not a bad. There's no bad direction there.
No bad answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, I love Scheider, so that would probably be my pick.
So would he be supporting? Because you put him as supporting and Dreyfus as best. We're going into the weeds here, so we can retreat.
I'm good. Pass. Okay.
Exactly.
This leads into an excellent question from Jeffrey Kerr, who said, why do you think Steven Spielberg failed to receive a Best Director nomination for Jaws? Also, what do you think of his famous reaction video?
Why don't you take this one first?
Okay. Well, to talk about the reaction video, I don't know if you've seen that, but it's excellent.
No, I actually haven't.
Yeah, well, he got a camera crew to film his live reaction to presumably getting a Best Director nomination.
And I think that before you even tell me anymore, that's the problem with Spielberg in a nutshell.
He was very excited. The heat was on, I think he got into like DGA. He got a Golden Globe nomination. Right. He felt like his time was coming with the Oscars.
And I kind of feel like if he'd only gotten that nomination, maybe we wouldn't have had to sit through Amistad.
I mean, fair.
But, maybe not true, maybe a little mean and snarky, but okay.
There's a kernel of truth in that. But so what happens, of course, is that Stanley Kubrick gets in, Barry Lyndon, Sidney Lumet, Dog Day Afternoon, Robert Altman, Nashville, Milos Forman, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, all Best Picture nominees. Jaws is nominated for Best Picture, but not director because the person is Federico Fellini.
Who's such a better filmmaker than Spielberg.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I'm stepping 2 feet into that. I mean, Amarcord. Yes.
Yeah.
I've got to say, if you want to put it in, favorite directors of mine, Fellini and Altman are there.
There you go.
And Ashby, a different kind of director. Although, and also in another show we can talk about female directors that I love. But of this 1975, Fellini or Spielberg? Mm-hmm. What's your answer?
That is a tough one because I mean, it is. Jaws is well directed. You can't say it's not.
No,
but it's hard to deny Fellini.
That's my point. It's hard.
That's the thing. Yeah.
I mean, look at it. It's hard to know. They couldn't.
Yeah.
And even though Amarcord did not get a Best Picture nom.
Yeah. Let's get into screenplay, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's the interest. And, Amarcord, if you take, the Fellini, it's a genius movie, but it isn't Fellini's, it isn't 8.5. Right. It isn't La Dolce Vita. So maybe that's why it didn't get in that list. And Lord knows, little Stevie, happy that you got nominated for Best Picture.
Right.
You're kind of doing the Bradley Cooper thing here.
That's fair. Yeah. That's a very,
very happy, right?
Interesting parallel, isn't it? Yeah.
And probably a little twisted. Okay.
Yeah. Well, what happens in the video is he's like, oh, they nominated Fellini, but in a way that he was like, of course, they had to nominate Fellini in a way that's like, I respect Fellini, but also I'm a little mad. That sort of thing.
And to which I would say Pandora's box. Never have a camera crew filming you about awards nominations because they're never, there's no predicting, as you and I both know, having predicted Oscars for so long.
Yeah. And he has friends with him, surrounding him, supporting him and kind of consoling him and being like, who the hell do you think directed the movie? A mother or something? It's a whole thing. But
which we can go and say this year, who the hell do you think directed the worst titled movie of the year? well, Marielle Heller, here we have Melissa McCarthy as the best actress. Richard E. Grant may be upset for best supporting. Who directed them? I don't know. Marielle Heller, she somehow is not among the directors.
Right. It reminds me of 1991 when they were talking about Barbara Streisand and how she was not nominated for best director for The Prince of Tides. And they made a comment, someone made a comment on the live show about how who directed this,
Right, exactly.
So,
and that's always, it's always the case. It's not a science.
Yeah.
And it's not rocket science either.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about Barry Lyndon.
Barry Lyndon, Kubrick,
Yeah.
the lighting of that movie.
Gorgeous.
What a gorgeous. Every scene. That is a classic movie. So would you rather see, I'm sorry, would you rather see Jaws again? Yeah, I actually would. What the heck? But Barry Lyndon is such the period piece with the natural lighting. Genius.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's on a technical level alone, it's brilliant.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
at an acting level and a storytelling level, and
Yeah.
it's a more complicated, interesting. It's not the King's Speech, In fact, it's better than the King's Speech.
Decidedly so. Yeah.
And I love a period movie, so
yeah.
Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
Love it. No question.
Yeah. And I watched it, for this week just to refresh myself on the film because it's been a while. And I really saw The Favorite had somewhat of a influence there. Or Barry Lyndon had some influence on The Favorite. Yeah. So I found that kind of interesting.
Do you have a detail? Is there a detail where you go, oh, I see it?
It's just even in the framing, the wide angle shots of, especially in the rooms of the, with the royalty scenes, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fluidity of it.
Right. Yeah. It's very well edited, very well paced. Even though it's 3 hours, it's kind of flies by in my opinion. Right. But yeah, interesting. Ryan O'Neal does not get nominated for Best Actor, even though he is the actor of the film in a Best Picture nomination. So
again, this is about being taken seriously.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of gonna say.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
stepped
on your line.
Yeah,
a pretty face still.
Same thought. Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's also a performance that is very subtle and understated. Almost to a fault in terms of the character. So, I can understand why it doesn't get a nomination from an Academy that prefers Al Pacino. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Interesting note, Walter Matthau, the Sunshine Boys.
Yeah.
Maximilian Schell, The Man in the Glass Booth. James Whitmore, it's an odd group. Give him Hell Harry as Harry Truman. That one's an odd group of guys.
Yeah.
Considering, listen, Warren Beatty and Shampoo.
Sure. Yeah.
Who I would put up there.
Yeah.
But again, there, Warren Beatty, he co-wrote the script. He's, he makes it seem, he's an actor who makes it seem easy.
Yeah. And that tends to be to their detriment.
Right.
In these kinds of situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So great Best Picture lineup, I must say. It's hard to knock any of them, really. And that's not what I say very often on this show. So a credit to them for nominating 5 fantastic films.
Everyone's a gem.
Yeah.
Everyone has stood the test of time.
Yeah. And for different reasons,
And you have One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Barry Lyndon, you have that period piece. Dog Day Afternoon, you have, a heist film. Jaws, you have, what would you call that? It's like a summer thriller? A thriller. Just an action thriller.
Yeah.
A thriller, but it's character driven. And then you have Nashville, which is, the beauty of American cinema. You have this just amazing ensemble piece that tries to give you a sense of what America is like right at this moment, and with a sense of spontaneity that also was repeated in Dog Day Afternoon. but is not so much in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Exactly. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, so let's move on to our Should Have Been a Contender segment. This is other films not nominated for Best Picture or any other movie that came out in 1975 that may not have even come close to the Oscars. So, Thelma, let's talk this year. You've certainly made some allusions throughout this episode already.
We talked about, I mean, again, Shampoo, definitely. I mean, Test of Time, fantastic script.
Just came out on Criterion, in fact.
Oh, and I would love to get that just to hear the what they have to say about the film. It's a movie that influenced my first novel, Playdate. Because it's about a man involved with three women of different generations, and often in Hollywood movies or in stories, he's the guy in control, and in fact, he's not. He's out of control. And it's about masculinity, and he's a hairdresser, and I love that movie. I love Hal Ashby. A movie that no one thought about that year, Hester Street, Joan Micklin Silver, starring Carol Kane. Fantastic movie. Love and Death. This is when Woody Allen was still considered not an auteur, but a comedian.
Right.
He'd come out of comedy. 3 Days of the Condor, a fantastic thriller, but then again, also maybe considered kind of a B movie, right? Not really taken seriously. Then you have, it's funny, totally not an Oscar movie, and yet one that is still playing time and time again, Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, I knew that's what you were going to say.
You knew. And if you want to talk, let's do the Time Warp again. Songs that are anthems of that time, and then still on college campuses now, and everybody knows the lines. Tim Curry, that's his debut. Can you believe that?
It's astonishing. Yeah.
And, cross-dressing. So it's transgressive. So those are the ones that come to me. What about you?
Yeah, well, just to jump off that Rocky Horror Picture Show, that's definitely one I wanted to talk a little bit more about. It's great. I just love it. It's depending on who you show it to, they will have a different reaction. But for me, it works absolutely all the way. It's just such a camp classic. There's so much. And Tim Curry in that performance is just iconic.
And it's a musical. It's an American musical.
And it's great music, great rock and roll music,
Yes.
Yeah. I just love it. And I wish Tim Curry was nominated because, I mean, that's just such a great performance. I know it was going nowhere near Oscar, but when you think about it.
Right. And that's, they would not, I wonder in a year, it's interesting, in a year of A Star is Born, would Rocky Horror Picture Show have a chance?
I don't know.
You know what? Again, speculative question. We don't know the answer.
I guess that's the theme of this episode. Yeah.
The theme of that, I think one of the themes of this episode is 1975 was a kick-ass year.
A killer year. Yeah. I wanted to talk about a documentary that came out this year that was very influential and great, and also somewhat of a camp classic in some circles. Grey Gardens.
Was that 75?
Yes, it was.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Totally a camp classic.
Yeah. I mean, two outsized personalities just saying whatever the hell they want, bickering, but also revealing some really deep, sad, and vulnerable truths at the same time,
Oh, definitely. Great movie.
Yeah. And it's even inspired, it inspired an HBO TV movie. It inspired a musical on stage. Its influence is still there.
And was it revisited again as a documentary? Or
they did a documentary now episode kind of inspired by it. I don't know if there's any sort of serious revisiting, but that's certainly possible because just very fascinating subjects.
Definitely.
Love it.
How
about Picnic at Hanging Rock?
Interesting. It's Beresford, right?
That is Peter Weir.
Oh, it's Peter Weir. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the entrance. Picnic at Hanging Rock, very disturbing.
Yes.
And it's also kind of the beginning of the rise of Australian cinema and the impact of Australian cinema on American movies.
Yeah.
And that was just like, ooh, no, dude. You know, it was like one of the, also, it ends and it's still so mysterious. What
Exactly.
the hell happened?
I love that ambiguous ending. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it's really ambiguous and haunting, and you really feel it, you know. It's
great
just
movie.
good.
Yeah.
Just good. Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about Tommy.
Was Tommy 75?
Yes, it was.
I love that movie.
As you will notice, nominated for Best Actress, Anne Margaret.
Gosh, Anne Margaret.
Yeah.
Anne Margaret, so totally one of my favorite actresses of all time. I'm thinking more Viva Las Vegas era, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah. Tommy. God, how many times did I see that? And how many people saw it on Altered Substances? Raise your hand. Yes.
Yeah. It's wild. It's really just an extended music video, but it is throwing everything at the wall. Bananas. Amazing cameos by Elton John, Tina Turner.
Right. And it's, 75 was still a very drug-fueled, drug-infused period. And Tommy certainly shows that. And also this idea of Roger Daltrey wanting to, he's yearning to step into film and be a star.
Right. Yeah. And he gets nominated at the Golden Globes for New Star of the Year. So there you have it.
There you have
it. We got 2 questions about Tommy, believe it or not. This one is from Daniel B, who said, thoughts on the really ... interesting, to say the least, Anne Margaret Best Actress nomination for Tommy.
Well, I guess I would say, I'm a little removed from seeing Tommy, although I saw it many times when I saw it. I would say that that's a cumulative award, that everybody loved Anne Margaret. She, and that's something to honor her and her willingness to step out. Do you have a different opinion on that one?
Well, I think the reason there is that feeling of being like, this is a very odd nomination, is because of the nature of the role itself, because it is very, it's not really the kind of film that would typically be an acting nominee at the Oscars. Like I said, it is kind of just a music video extended out. But the thing is,
pause. When was MTV born?
Like probably around this era. I don't know specifically,
no.
but
so this is very pre-music video.
Yes, pretty much.
So you got to give it a little credit for prescience.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I just looked it up. It was launched in 1981. So
yeah.
Yeah, you can feel the influence. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But she really gives it her all in this movie. And I think there was a lot of respect for that within the Academy. Just her willingness to just go there. There's a very famous scene that people remember from this film where she gets showered in baked beans. And it's just like having the time. We've all been there.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
But her willingness to go there is respected and amazed,
and
shock and awe.
Right. I believe she was a previous nominee before this, which might have helped, but yeah. And also this is from Kyle Bailey, who said, how the hell did Anne Margaret get nominated for Tommy? So along the same lines of
I don't know. How the hell? Because there's always a nomination that's kind of, that you're kind of like, huh?
Oh. Yeah.
But in this case, it's speculative.
Yeah.
Judge, that question is speculative.
Right. This is from Brandon Stanwyck, who said Glenda Jackson, Carol Kane, and Isabel Adjani were their film Yeah. Were their films sole nominations? Do you think that hurt their chances with voters? Because, parentheses, because they're all better than Louise Fletcher.
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, so a Johnny French movie.
Right.
The thing is, you don't get better than Glenda Jackson and Hedda. You just don't.
I thought you were just going to say you don't get better than Glenda Jackson. Like,
period.
Yeah.
You just don't get better than Glenda Jackson.
Yeah.
So that again, and Carol Kane deserved it. This is her first year acting. It was a small movie, before the small movies started winning all the Oscars. God bless her. She deserved it for that movie. Louise Fletcher. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, obviously it's a case of being in the right movie. In the case of Louise Fletcher.
In the right movie at the right time.
Yeah.
No negative on Fletcher. She is great in that movie.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think the thing with that is I do understand the lead supporting argument of being like, is she a true lead of the film,
Okay, so true leads of the film, the issue is, do they carry the narrative?
Right.
And also, then we've got to get on the feminist side, which is so few women get to carry the narrative. In 75, you look at the films. Okay, let's look at the films. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, no. Barry Lyndon, no. Dog Day Afternoon, no. Jaws, no. Nashville, no. So we have to say, maybe it's the problem in some sense of the movies and the industry.
Yeah, pretty much. And I did read in the book Inside Oscar about this year about how Ellen Burstyn actually publicly talked about how, like, I think was blaming the Academy in some ways for not finding the right, types of sole lead actress performances, at least in this category, and also just as far as all of the nominations. Because like we said, it's a very male dominated films that are nominated throughout this year. So
throughout all the years.
Yes. Okay. But
let's not be sideswiped. Let's be joyous about 75.
Right. Yes. And I remember reading that Louise Fletcher was kind of like, oh, I don't know if that's exactly, that doesn't feel great, being like, oh, they didn't find the right types of roles to nominate.
Right. Yeah, that's an insult. Yeah, that's an insult. I do, she is the foil. She is the foil of that movie. And it is a meaty, big role.
It is. Yeah. I think some of the issue with how people feel about it is that it is, again, very pent up kind of a performance and not an outwardly showy one. She really is containing a lot within herself.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, also she doesn't have an arc.
Right. There's that too.
I think that's the issue. I think you're right. That one is right. If the character does not have an arc, it's not a lead.
Yeah. Just a few questions to go through since we talked about these films a little bit. San Diego Cinerama said
I grew up in San Diego. That's
there
where
you
I
go.
saw all the 75.
Yeah.
That's in high school. Yes.
Very good. 1975 is the year Rocky Horror Picture Show came out. What, if any, Oscars should it have been nominated for? Tim Curry, costume design.
Best picture.
Makeup, best picture. Yes.
Best song.
Oh my God! Yes.
Supporting actress Susan Sarandon.
Sure. Yeah.
I'd
take it.
I'd take it.
Yeah.
I'd be going there. Yeah.
That's what I'd say. I'd say give it like 5-6 nominations. Yeah.
Because you know what? People are still watching it.
Still.
It is still running and people are still paying money and dressing up. So it's stood the test of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And who is going and singing along with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Okay.
Silence. Yeah, so Milstead on Movies said, why no love for Picnic at Hanging Rock, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, or Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Oh, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yes, me too. Yeah.
All time.
Mm.
Oh, okay. and a lot of I'm not someone who has my number one favorite movie. That's but that is a brilliant movie. But again, it's not serious.
Yes, it's not serious. Like Barry Lyndon.
Like Barry Lyndon. Someday, all this will be yours. What the curtains? I still can quote it. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah, you said it right there. It's not serious enough. It's really very simple. All these, Rocky Horror Picture Show, kind of same thing. As far as Picnic at Hanging Rock, probably not enough awareness for the film.
Yeah. And also it was because it doesn't land specifically in the way that, good and bad. Clearly good and bad in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Ratchet bad. He's good. It's very clear. Picnic at Hanging Rock is very disturbing, and you don't know why.
Yes, it's an unexplainable dread that you feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well put.
The Sunshine Boys also comes out this year, written by Neil Simon, of course. Herbert Ross, I believe, directs that, and that is the big win for George Burns in Best Supporting Actor.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's George Burns, for God's sake. Kind of like Anne Margaret, different movies, but it's a recognition of Burns.
Yeah. And it had been a while since he had done anything, I believe.
For his body of work, and he's fantastic.
Yeah, he is. He's just naturally funny and great in that. It was literally just on TCM like a few days ago. So
and did you watch it?
Yes. And some of like the humor is definitely leaning into like weird racial slurs, but regardless, I think the chemistry between the two of them is pretty good. So it kind of works, but it's not my favorite.
It's dated.
Yeah. That's a very good way of summing up exactly what I just babbled about. Okay. It's dated. This is from, and I quote, this is a real Twitter account, Ellen DeGeneres' dance teacher. Yes.
Very busy.
Yes.
Okay.
He said, "What do you think about the George Burns win? Some people think it's one of those now before it's too late wins, but after I watched The Sunshine Boys, I think he completely deserved to win. I think that most people just have not seen the movie."
Since you've seen it recently, your thoughts are?
Well, looking at the competition, I would say that is not a clear winner for me. I certainly appreciate what he does in the film. I like Brad Dourif. I don't know if I'd give it to Chris Sarandon, but I'm definitely fine with just giving George Burns an Oscar. That's what I would say.
I think Best
That's
Supporting
good enough.
Actor is kind of odd. It's an odd group of people, unlike the Best Supporting Actress, where they're all pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, right. So those are kind of the top highlights that I wanted to talk about, unless you had any others from this year.
Boy, I think that we have covered the waterfront.
I think so too.
I think we've gone back and forth, and I think we know that there's a lot to love, and that Rocky Horror Picture Show was robbed.
Damn straight. Yes. Okay. So when we come back, we'll be delivering our verdict as to whether One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest deserved Best Picture, or if Dog Day Afternoon maybe should have taken it more.
You've been away far too long. Welcome home, Audrey Hepburn.
The nominees for the Best Picture of the Year are Barry Lyndon, a Hawk Film Limited production, Warner Brothers, Stanley Kubrick, producer. Dog Day Afternoon, Warner Brothers, Martin Bregman and Martin Elfand, producers. Jaws, a Universal Zanuck Brown production, Universal, Richard D. Zanuck and David Brown, producers. Nashville, an ABC Entertainment, Jerry Weintraub, Robert Altman production, Paramount. Robert Altman, producer. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a Fantasy Films production, United Artists, Saul Zaentz and Michael Douglas, producers. Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
And we're back. So now we will be delivering our verdict as to whether One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest deserved Best Picture or if Dog Day Afternoon maybe deserved it more. Thelma Adams, what is your verdict?
Dog Day Afternoon. I think Dog Day Afternoon deserved it. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I would go sit and watch it right now.
Sure.
Good movie, great performances. But Dog Day Afternoon just riles me up. It's just crazy. It's just fizzy. It's just unhinged in so many ways. And yet Lumet never loses his control scene to scene. Radical, interesting. Definitely Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah. For my verdict, I would agree with you and say Dog Day Afternoon deserved Best Picture. Like I said at the top of the show, it is electrifying filmmaking. I
Agreed.
think it is representative of the 70s in a great way, especially this particular year. And I would have been happy with Sidney Lumet winning Best Director alongside it, so we could have an Oscar.
I agree. Sidney,
Yeah.
really, this was a year where he deserved it.
Yeah.
Although Spielberg would say the same thing.
Yeah.
That this was the year that he really deserved it.
Yeah. He got his due. Opening it up to the other Best Picture nominees, would you say one maybe deserved it over Dog Day Afternoon?
I hate to say it, Nashville. For me, Nashville is an American masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I love Altman. That doesn't mean, that is a little bit, we're in a lifeboat and we're making a decision and we got to pick one.
Yes. And the shark is coming.
And the shark is coming. I would say that I would pick either movie. I would pick Dog Day Afternoon or Nashville over anything this year.
Very good. Yeah. And not to be boring, but I totally agree that Nashville is my pick overall. I would say Dog Day Afternoon is a very strong number two. Very strong number two.
Right.
And I mean, that's not to discredit One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I think is a great film and I'm very happy with it winning Best Picture. And actually, I don't think we mentioned it, but, it does sweep the top 5 awards, which hasn't been done since it happened one night. So.
And that's the mysterious thing, I think, about it, is how strong and how clear they were that was the best movie of the year in so many ways.
Right.
When in retrospect, things kind of shift around. And I think that's a lesson to take to every Oscars, which is that when we go in, what wins is very much hinges on what's going on in the current time and what movies will stand the test of time. Mm-hmm. We won't know for another 30 years.
Right.
40 years.
40, yeah. It's interesting. The Oscars are indeed a time capsule, I think. And that's what I find so fascinating about them. But also why I created the show is to highlight the movies that came close and very much deserve to be in the same conversation, if not more. So.
And I think it's a brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Kudos to you.
I appreciate that. So with that, thank you so much, Thelma, for coming on this show. I think this is a fantastic chat.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed it.
Yes,
and it
you're
brought
welcome
me
back
back
anytime. Good.
A pleasure. It brought me back to movies that I love that I haven't been thinking about for a while. So
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate it. So tell the people where they can find more of your work on the internet.
Ooh, so my name is Thelma Adams. I have a website, thelmaadams.com, 1A in the middle. Google me, for God's sake. It's pretty easy. I have a weekly column at realclearlife.com. This week I'm writing about, for Valentine's Day, horror movies that are romantic with
Nice.
One of my favorite movies. Jim Jarmusch's I said, Only Lovers Left Alive? No.
Yes, I love Only Lovers Left Alive.
And, Let the Right One In, the Swedish movie. I am constantly writing. I wrote a piece this weekend that I love at Variety about the Berlinale and Andrea Riceborough and Women in Hollywood in a panel that was really, so I'm a novelist, and my current novel that you can get on Amazon is Bittersweet Brooklyn, which is a noir retelling with a female-driven narrative.
Excellent. And also, where can people find you on Twitter?
At Thelma Adams.
Perfect.
TheLmadams.
All right. And you can find me on Twitter at Kevin_Jacobson. My writing is at Gold Derby. And you can find Twitter for the show at Oscar Runner Up. The show is on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play. Rate, review, subscribe. So now I will leave it up to you listening at home to pick whether you think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest deserved to win, or if Dog Day Afternoon should have taken it. And you can do that by going to my website at filmtrophies.com or emailing me at filmtrophies@gmail.com. So once again, thank you, Thelma.
My pleasure. See you at Gold Derby, where you can also see me.
That's right. And I will bid you all adieu.